The pre-show takes a little longer because we have more things we have to try to get situated and ready to go. All right, so we'll get started here in just a second. Maybe. All right, YouTube thing seems to be ready to go. Let me open up YouTube. Then I gotta turn off the... That is so irritating that they cannot just put in the option to turn off the chat. I really don't like that. Right, you know, like I shouldn't have to go through this step. Right, YouTube thing seems to be ready to go. Turn off chat. YouTube, then I gotta turn off the... Okay, that's fixed. Okay. That's just irritating. It really is, that I have to manually go to the YouTube app, open up the program, click on the settings, and turn off the chat. Like that's... It should just work, right? I should just be able to, in the normal settings, you should just be like, turn off chat permanently. But it doesn't work that way. So, but at least that's fixed. Now hang on, I got to go check our sound here. Let me open up Sermon Audio, do a search for, hang on, no, there's webcast, right? Okay, here we go. Hang on, I gotta go check our sound here. Test 1, 2, 3. Let me open. Okay, I think that's good. All right. Now, I think I've got everything ready to go. I think so. All right. Do a refresh. All right, I think we should be able to begin here in just a few seconds. All right, good. I've got that ready. I just need this open to my email inbox since we're going to be starting with an email. So, let's see. Hang on, I'm verifying. Who hasn't done his homework? Okay, right, good. All right, I've got everything I need right there. Okay. Wanted to make sure I copied it word for word and so that I do not misquote someone, because I'm going to be addressing an email. I got a number of emails today of things people want me to address. I think one of the things that keeps showing up in my email inbox is everybody wants me to address the whole, I don't know if you saw the Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz argument, where they got into it about, well, the Bible says support Israel. Oh, you're quoting from this. And it's like, you know, two guys who clearly, neither one of them have much theological understanding. And it was just crazy. So now everyone's running around on everywhere talking about, well, to support Israel, don't support Israel. What does that mean? So I'm getting emails asking about it. And so I'll have to try to break it down and, see if I can offer some kind of insight. So we'll get started here in just a second. Not about that, but about something else. All right, I think we're good to go. It is 927,000 degrees here in the studio, but that's okay. I think we're good. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I think I got everything I need. Let's do this. Let's see how far we can get. We go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is Monday, June the 23rd, 2025. It is currently 5:31 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from the Theology Central studio located right here in Abilene, Texas. Now, I do my very best on this podcast to try to bring some kind of clarity. I try. I don't know. Do I really bring clarity? I guess I try to bring clarity. I think most people feel like by the time they're done listening to me after, I don't know, if they listen to me for a while, a few months, that they start saying they don't know what they believe anymore and they question everything. So I don't know if I can say I try. I mean, in my mind, I'm trying to bring clarity. I definitely bring challenge, right? I definitely bring challenge. I definitely bring questions. And I definitely call for all of us to try to engage in critical thinking about every single subject we discuss, every single passage of scripture we look at. I constantly try to get people to use critical thinking when it comes to scripture, when it comes to faith, when it comes to culture, when it comes to theology, when it comes to politics. It doesn't matter. Critical thinking skills. When it comes to listening to sermons. So today, I'm going to kind of do the same thing because we're going to be taking, hopefully, I hope you agree by the time we're done, a very hard, honest look at something that a lot of people are starting to use, but I think very few really understand. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, which should not surprise you because 2025, I have an entire series about AI. And not only do I have a series about AI, which I haven't done a lot of messages in that series, but I have mentioned AI in every single series, every single thing that we have done in 2025. I mention AI over and over and over. Artificial intelligence has its fingerprints. I know it doesn't actually have fingerprints, but it's metaphorical fingerprints on every single episode we have done for at least all of 2025 and parts of 2024. AI has touched every aspect of this. And as many of you know, I'm very pro AI. I make the joke when artificial intelligence finally takes over, I want it to remember I have been on your team since day one. If it's AI versus the humans, I'm going with artificial intelligence. I'm on team AI. Now, a lot of people think that I think it's greater than it really is. I think a lot of people don't agree with my approach to it, and they definitely don't agree with my opinion. They either are fearful of it, they don't think it's really that big a deal. Whatever the case is, I tend to be, I hate to say it, I feel like sometimes I'm the one always defending it. But whatever else others may think about artificial intelligence, to me, it's one of the most amazing technological advances I have ever encountered in my life. That's how I feel about it. I'm literally blown away by it every single day. Do I get frustrated with it sometimes? Oh, absolutely. Do I get irritated with it? And sometimes I get irritated with just some of the technological issues with it. For example, I don't even know how many times this has happened now. I think maybe I'm on number 7, number 8, where I have completely used up its entire memory. Like AI is like, look, and I'm paying for the subscription, and AI is like, look, I can't do anything else. You're going to have to go. And so I have to go in and pick the memories and delete which memories I want it to delete. And in one case, today I was using it for something, and it wiped out like 6 months of conversation. It's like you've gone past. You've used up it's like you've reached the end of the internet. There's nothing else to see. It's like you've reached the end of AI's capability. We've got to start over. I'm like, I don't want to start over. I want you to remember everything. So now sometimes when there's those little glitches and those little problems, I get so irritated. But isn't that true of all technology? I love the technology that I'm using to broadcast. You hear my frustration when the internet crashes or something goes wrong on Sermon Audio's side and the site crashes or the microphone cuts out or whatever the case may be. So all technological advancements, all forms of technology have their problems and have their limitations. I think we can all agree about that. But I believe AI is amazing. So I tend to be on team AI, but I think a lot of people don't understand AI. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is I don't think they understand how to train artificial intelligence. Because whether you understand this or not, you have to train it. And how you train it has great impact. And in some ways, every time you use it, you're training it. But you may not even realize, I think some people are training it and don't realize they're training it, and they are training it in very bad ways. And others may know how to train it, but then they train it in such a way that I think is actually detrimental to critical thinking, understanding, and clarity. So we're going to talk more specifically today about how to train artificial intelligence so it becomes a reliable tool instead of a dangerous liability, especially when we're dealing with things like scripture, theology, sermon evaluation. But I just want to make it very clear. I don't care what subject you're dealing with. I don't care what it is. I don't care what the subject is. You want to train AI so it's not a liability. You want to train AI so that you end up where we should all want to end up. It doesn't matter the subject. Doesn't matter if it's politics. Doesn't matter if it's medicine. It doesn't matter if it's history. We want to end up in the land of truth. We want to end up in the land of facts and critical thinking and logic. That's where we want to end up, not on team whatever the ideology is. But you have to then train it to get you there. So I want to start this with an email that I received today, because I think this email perfectly captures the concerns many people have about this technology. I think it captures it greatly. I think when I saw the email, I was like, well, this is perfect. This is perfect because I can use this, all right? So here's what the email says, all right? It starts with, I've been using AI more just to experience what it's like. Well, that's awesome. I think everyone should use AI to understand what it's like. Here's this. I don't even know where to even place this technological advancement. To me, it's one of the greatest. So whether you think it's one of the greatest or you think it's all hype, well, the only way for you to know is for you to use it. Use artificial intelligence. Use it. Understand it. Even if you don't like it, at least seek to understand it so that you can engage in meaningful conversations about it. So that's awesome. Their conclusion, it seems, after utilizing AI to experience what it's like, is found in the next line of the email. ChatGPT, now that's the one I use all the time, ChatGPT, this is how they describe it, is like an 8th grade student who hasn't done his homework. ChatGPT is like an 8th grade student who hasn't done his homework. Now, I'm going to push back a little bit. If ChatGPT is like an 8th grader who hasn't done his homework, then what in the world does that mean about the hundreds and hundreds of sermons that I've given ChatGPT that ChatGPT has utterly destroyed, and pointing out its hermeneutical errors, logical errors, factual errors, historical errors, over and over and over and over again. If ChatGPT is like an 8th grade student who hasn't done his homework, what does that say about most of the population on Earth who just spout off all kinds of factual errors, historical errors, logical fallacies? I mean, what does that say about people? If ChatGPT is an 8th grade student who hasn't done his homework, I'm going to say most of the population then is a 2nd grader who didn't even go to class. Now, I'm not saying all people, obviously, but I don't think it's fair to say ChatGPT is an 8th grade student who hasn't done his homework. I think ChatGPT can do far better than any 8th grade student that I've ever known. It can analyze data it can gather, it can recall, the things it can do is utterly amazing. Are there problems? I would say yes. But guess what? All technologies have problems and have limitations when they first start, when they first begin. Do you remember using the internet at its very, 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 very beginning? Do you remember using dial-up and you get kicked off the internet anytime somebody would call the house phone? Do you remember the difficulties in things doing this or trying to find this? Do you remember some of those issues? Everything does. So I understand what the person is saying, and there's probably times that's very accurate, but there's a little bit of, again, I tend to be on team AI. the person says, recently, artificial intelligence made up a model of earbuds that didn't exist. Said earbuds use a micro USB connection when they didn't, and claimed a product didn't have soy, then immediately contradicted itself and said it did. And so on. What it says is so wildly inaccurate, I couldn't trust it with anything I didn't already know. Frightening to think people will accept what it says. All right? So those are strong words. Now, listen, I've got my own stories. There's times AI has contradicted itself and say one thing and then turn around and say another, and I get irritated. Whenever it does that, I call it out. I'm like, wait a minute, you gave me two contradictory questions or answers. Why? Or no, that's not what I'm referring to. And I will correct it and try to fix it. And I try to work. And with every single time it makes a mistake, you know what? Not only do I point out the mistake, I will try to go find sources that'll say, wait a minute, this doesn't appear to be accurate. And then I will always say, why did this happen? I always ask this, why did this happen? How can we avoid this from happening in the future? Those are the two things I always ask it when there's a mistake. How did this happen? Explain to me what occurred. Usually it has a very good explanation, right? And then I'll say, okay, how can I avoid it? And it will say, tell me to do this or tell me to, and I will say, okay, from this point forward, don't do this, don't do that. That's called training it. Now, if you're someone who uses AI for your own studies, for writing, Bible studies, sermon prep, to save time, whatever you may use it for, you may have felt, well, that email, and it may have made you go, wait a minute, if I'm relying on AI and AI is an 8th grade student who hasn't done his homework, what does that make me? Right? You may feel like that was kind of like an attack upon you. But I even asked AI about the email, and AI is like, well, let's be honest, they're not completely wrong. And I'm like, okay, well, AI is acknowledging its own limitations. I'm like, okay, that's good. AI said, so I asked AI itself, and AI said, yes, there are times AI does make things up. Yes, AI does contradict itself. And yes, AI does deliver answers in a tone that sounds confident even when it's completely wrong. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad AI admits that. That's a good thing. But what if it's not just that AI? What if it's not just that AI is the problem? What if maybe AI is not even the problem? Maybe AI is part of the problem, but maybe the problem is it's how people are using it, not knowing how to use it, and not actually training it. I mean, look, let's be honest. If AI is a problem, if AI is a liability, if AI is dangerous, oh, I know I'm about to get myself in trouble. I'm gonna reach down. Anybody know what that is? Does anybody know what that is? That's my Bible. The Bible, in the hands of untrained people, in the hands of a bad interpreter, I think the Bible then becomes a weapon that is used to ultimately hurt people, justify evil, and may even encourage evil. People can twist the Bible to their own destruction. The Bible can become a confusion machine. It can become a machine producing confusion and chaos. AI, in the hands of an untrained person, And AI not being trained properly becomes little more than a content creator, a content generator. It's just powered by assumptions and guesswork. So I think AI has to be properly trained, and the people using it have to become more literate when it comes to artificial intelligence. I stated this at the beginning of the year that I think what we're going to have to focus on, AI is not going away. AI is here. That's at least my feelings. AI is only going to grow and evolve and develop, and it's going to become more and more prevalent. Whether we like it or not, it's the way things are going. So you and I are going to have to become more AI literate. And I think part of that literacy is like, here's what AI does and doesn't do, but here's what we have to do with it, or it's only going to become a liability. So, what I'm going to attempt to do in this episode, and I don't know if we're going to have to do this in multiple parts, is I want to try to walk us through how to train AI. So, what I did is I gave AI the email and it said, hey, there's some possible problems. It talked about all the possible. I could go through everything. AI took the email apart and went long about it. And it basically said, hey, these are real problems. And I asked AI, well, how do I avoid these problems? And then I asked AI, and it gave me a long list of ways that I can avoid the problem, specific things that I can do. And I said, okay, how well have I trained you to avoid these problems? And AI said, you have done extremely well in challenging me and training me. So I was like, okay, since I've done, even AI acknowledges I've been working trying to train it, that I'm like, okay, well then maybe I'm not saying, by no means do I have the expertise from behind the scene, right? I don't understand AI perfectly from behind the scenes, the building, the creator, the maintaining of AI. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but as someone who has used it, I use it literally daily. I can't even explain how frequently I use AI. There's no way to, I'm constantly talking to it about literally everything. So I feel like I'm not an expert, but I feel like I've spent a lot of hours working and talking and training it. So I feel like I have some insight into how to train AI. At least I feel like I do. And especially when it comes to hermeneutics, Bible study, and sermon critique, because, well, I use it for that all the time. And I think we need to understand the dangers of what happens if we don't train it properly. All right. So let's start here. Let's start with trying to understand what artificial intelligence is and what it isn't. What is AI and what is it not? Okay. What is artificial intelligence? See, before we even attempt to try to train artificial intelligence to serve theological or biblical purposes, I think we got to kind of dismantle, maybe it's a myth, maybe it's not a myth. I think we have to start with what AI actually is, all right? AI is not a person. I think we can all agree with that. It's not a brain. I think we can all agree with that. It's definitely not a theologian. I think we can all agree with that. And you can put a list of other things it's not. AI, I think this is accurate to say, doesn't actually know. It doesn't actually know anything the way a human knows something. But just remember, this is very important. Humans, I think, in some ways, there's a lot of similarities between humans and AI. AI may give you information that it thinks is correct and can be wrong. Humans run around all the time thinking they know when they don't know. Come on. If AI doesn't know anything the way humans know anything, well, guess what? That doesn't make me fearful of AI because humans think they know when they don't. That's why there's arguments, a constant. Just go online for 5 minutes. Everyone's arguing. Guess what? Everyone assumes. Everyone assumes that not only do they know, that they know better, they know more, and their knowledge is correct, and your knowledge is incorrect. No matter what subject I bring up, I always get an email with disagreeing with me because people think they know the most, and their knowledge is correct, and anyone who disagrees with them, their knowledge is incorrect. That's the way humans work. That doesn't make humans any more right or any more knowledgeable. In fact, I think it's more dangerous for humans because they think they know and they won't listen to any contrary information because humans have pride where AI doesn't. Humans have a sinful nature where AI doesn't. So AI doesn't know anything the way human beings know something, but in some ways I'm kind of glad AI doesn't know things the way human beings know something, because the way human beings know something is they know something with a sinful nature and human pride and ego. So yeah, we could get into a whole theological discussion about that. AI doesn't understand, it doesn't believe, it doesn't interpret really with any intent, and despite maybe how it sounds, it doesn't have a consciousness, doesn't have conviction, and it doesn't even really have any context. It doesn't have any of that. That can be good or that can be bad. So then what is it at its core? AI, and I'm going to obviously necessarily focus on ChatGPT, it's a language model. That means, and I know this may be a very elementary explanation, so for those who are more technologically advanced, please forgive me. I think we could say it's trained on, if you want to understand AI, it's a language model, and that means it's trained on massive amounts of written text, and it is programmed to predict, in a sense, the most likely next word in a sentence based on patterns in that data. So it looks at data, and then it kind of is predictive. It's predictive. Right? Okay, based on this, and this, well then, dun, 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 dun. Based off this pattern, this, dun, 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 dun. And so it's kind of predicting, but it predicts it in a very dogmatic assertion. Well, this is the way it should be, based off all of this. So AI doesn't know what is true. It knows what's likely to be said next. That's why I can give you an answer that sounds completely reasonable and be 1000% dead wrong. It's not lying to you in a malicious sense. It's simply generating. It's generating things. I think the best way to say it generates based on probability, not truth. I think that's a fair way to say it. It's generating on the basis of probability, not truth, because it's just taking information and then predicting, okay, based off what I've gathered, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And it's going to say something in many cases, even if maybe it's not sure, but it's not going to necessarily tell you it's unsure unless you train it to tell you that it's unsure. So if someone was to ask, how could AI make up a product that doesn't exist? Or why would it contradict itself about soy in a protein bar? The answer, well, maybe it's simple. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe this is not a very good technological explanation because I think it's blending together fragments of similar products. It's blending together. It went out there and reached and gathered a bunch of information, and for some weird reason, it's blending information. It's got so much information. Maybe sometimes it's got too much information. So it's blending together fragments of familiar products or similar claims and similar language. And it's doing this based on everything it's seen and everything it's looked at. It's trying to sound helpful. Think of it this way. It's a pattern imitator, not a knowledge engine. So what does that mean for you, for me? What does that mean for us? What does it mean for anybody using it for hermeneutics, Bible study, theology? What does it mean if you're using it for anything? Because you're constantly using it. I mean, you can think of all the ways you use it and what you use it for. So, for example, if we don't understand what artificial intelligence is, we're going to possibly then use it in ways that could ultimately be detrimental or a liability. So if I ask it to tell me what a verse means, do I just immediately take the first answer as gospel, or do I really think about it and engage it? See, again, I've tried to say this since the beginning of 2025. AI is not to be like a Google search engine. It's not just give me the answer. It's supposed to be, once you get it, now you engage. You go back and forth. Wait, what about this? What about you? It's there to almost as a partner to go back and forth with, not just simply to just spout out information. Now, that information sometimes can be helpful, but you still have to sometimes engage it about the information it's given you. So we could ask it to summarize a doctrine and not realize it's blending 5 different systems together into one vague paragraph. So I can summarize a doctrine, and then I can look at it going, whoa, I think this just blended 5 different systems into one paragraph. This is confusing. You've got to, again, there is a requirement for you to have some understanding, and that part is true. See, if you don't know what you're doing, and if you don't know what AI is doing, you may ask AI something. You know what it's going to give you? It's going to give you a devotional answer instead of an exegetical one, unless you specifically ask for an exegetical one. And it's not going to know it doesn't just immediately know, oh, I'm giving you a devotional answer versus an exegetical answer. It's not. You asked it a question. The way you asked the question made it open, and it's going to go pull for what most people do. Most of Christianity gives you nothing more than devotional answers. So that's where it's going to typically go, unless you are specific. See, we're not to use AI necessarily as the ultimate authority. We're to use it as a filter. We're to use it as a challenger. We're to use it as a spotter. We're to use it to help us gather, to engage, to go back and forth, to formulate. It's like we work with it. So I think once you kind of get an understanding of what it is and what it isn't, I think then we are ready to kind of actually train it to do meaningful work. And so that's what I really want to focus on here is this. I'm trying to train it. So you got to understand what it is and what it isn't. So how do you actually train artificial intelligence to not give you lazy, inaccurate, devotionalized answers and start giving you something useful, faithful, and grounded? How do you move it in a certain direction? Well, a lot is what you ask for. I got to say this. I think this is so true. How you ask the question, what you ask, how specific you are, or how vague you are, is going to so much determine what you get. It's the quality of the question will greatly determine the quality of the answer. If you just throw some haphazard, lazy request out, who knows what you're going to get? You sometimes have to be like, okay, wait a minute. How can I make this more specific? How can I ensure? And then sometimes you gotta ask this. Okay, now you gave me this. Are you sure about this? Sometimes you have to ask for clarification. And sometimes once you ask for clarification, it will completely may then go, wait a minute, you're right. Everything I just said is not completely accurate. And then you want to ask, how did this happen? Why did this happen? How can we stop this from happening again? You constantly have to do that. So now that hopefully I've established to you that AI is a probability-driven language model, it's not a sentient source of truth. So how do I get it to work for you? How do I get it to work for us? Because to me, the good news is, and this is what I love about AI, I don't have to settle for shallow, vague, or misleading answers. Like Bible commentaries, sermons, where I get shallow, vague, misleading answers. Human beings, where I get shallow, vague, misleading answers and conspiracy theories and half-truths and misrepresenting data. Human beings. See, the thing with AI, I can train it to operate with clarity. I can train it to operate with consistency. I can try to train it to operate with at least some semblance of integrity. But it only happens if you set the standard. See, when it comes to people, I can listen to a podcast. I'm not setting the standard. They set the standard. I don't know what they're giving me. I don't know. They may give me truth. They may give me half-truth. They may be misleading. Again, how many sermons have we? I look, all those sermon reviews I've done. Everyone thinks they think those sermon reviews are sometimes me just trying to be critical. It's not. What I'm trying to show you is what you typically you find out there. And a lot of people say, "Well, I don't find all of that bad stuff." Well, then I'm sorry, I don't know what you're doing, because every sermon I choose is at random. And there have been utterly total train wrecks of misrepresentation to downright flat lies. There's no way to get around it. It's just fraudulent information over and over and over. And I don't set the standard for any of them. I can't set the standard for sermons. I can't set the standard for all the nonsense that's out there. But with AI, see, that's the difference. I can say, whoa, I need you to help me filter out. I don't ever want it to filter out. I want you to identify error. I want you to show me the error. I want you to show me how it's wrong. And I want you to criticize me when I'm wrong. So let's just try to go through some basic things. You have to establish your standards up front. AI is not coming to you with a moral compass. It mirrors whatever is most common unless you tell it otherwise. It's pulling from all the information out there. So it's going to give you what is common, what is typically there. I hate that. That's why I'm like, no. Tell me what's there, because I want to know what's there, but don't act like that what's there is completely right. I want you to criticize and critique and analyze and tell me, here's what's out there, but here's the problems with it. So if you want precision, if you want theological depth, if you want accuracy, you have to say so. For example, when here are some prompts, and you've got to, and I think you need to make a list of prompts that you can just cut and paste so that you always have them ready, right? Have good prompts that when you ask the question, you can put these prompts along with your question. For example, sometimes if I'm asking for quotes or information, I may say something like, only include verifiable facts from primary or reputable sources. Only include verifiable facts from primary or reputable sources. I use that prompt all the time. Tell me the sources. Tell me where the information is coming from. And then after I get that, I'm like, okay, are there differing views? Are there alternative views? Now give me things that may not be from a reputable source. What are they saying? What are they saying? Now, this one I do all the time when I ask for information. So the first one I said for quotes, but really the first one is just when I'm looking for facts, okay? But for the second one I use is mainly for quotes. I always tell AI, label all quotes as, and I want 3 possibilities. If you give me a quote, tell me if it's a direct quote, tell me if it's a paraphrase, or tell me if it's an allusion. A direct quote, a paraphrase, or an allusion. You're just alluding to something, but it's not a direct quote. I want to know. When it comes to Bible study or theology or scripture, I tell it, I do not want, I will say something like, avoid devotional, sentimental language. Avoid that unless I explicitly ask for it. I don't want you to give me the devotional approach to Matthew this or John that. I don't want that garbage. I don't want it. That's how everybody. Now, what I will typically do is after it gives me the exegetical, I will say, okay, now give me what the typical devotional, sentimental, how does most Christians look at it? And then it will give me how most Christians look at it. And then I'm like, okay, now let's step away from how most Christians look at it. Now, I want you to get exegetical, logical, biblical, textual, historical. And I have to drive home what I want. I have to sometimes tell AI, do not assume theological positions. Don't assume mine. Don't assume anyone. Don't assume that any of them are right. I want you to identify all the different theological positions, and I want you to separate the views and clearly label them. Some people say I'm being picky. Yes, I'm being picky. I'm going to be picky. I'm going to be specific because that is the responsible way to use such a tool. Basically, I'm training AI to work for me. In some cases, I'm actually training AI to work against me in this sense. I want it to be critical of what I say. I want it to challenge what I say. I want it to point out my theological errors, my factual errors. I tell it to be aggressive with me and just tell me that I'm playing out wrong. If you don't set the standard, you'll get whatever they think is good enough. And when they say they, from whatever sources it's pulling from, I don't want to just get good enough. I don't want to just get whatever everybody else thinks. I want to dig in and try to find the truth. You've got to set the standard. So if you use AI, what standards have you set for it? Have you even had a conversation about standards? Have you even talked to AI about what can you do to ensure that you get factual, actual? If you haven't done that, then don't blame AI. You've got to blame yourself for not setting the standard. All it's going to do is just reach out there. Who knows what it's pulling from? Who knows? It's going to pull from anything and everything it can find. Well, I don't know if you know this, especially when it comes to Christianity. A good portion of what it's pulling from is complete and utter rubbish and trash and garbage. That's what I've tried to show you with all the sermon reviews. That's the stuff AI is pulling from. And I'm like, for crying out loud, don't pull from Christianity. Find some Satanists somewhere and pull from them. Okay, that's a little hyperbole, but you get the idea. So if you're going to blame AI, blame the people that it's pulling from, okay? It's pulling from the stuff that people made, okay? That's the problem. Now, sometimes AI then makes its own mistakes with the stuff it's pulling. That is true. And sometimes I'm like, what are you talking about? Right? What is this? So establish your standard. Number 2, demand transparency, not just answers. A major danger with artificial intelligence is that it speaks with confidence even when it's wrong. So you have to interrupt the illusion of certainty. You can ask, where does that information come from? Is that a direct quote or just a paraphrase? Is that the majority view or is that a disputed interpretation or a disputed view? And I don't think you should stop there. I think you have to require artificial intelligence to signal uncertainty. I tell AI all the time, if you're not sure, say so. I try to even build that expectation into your prompt. I'll say something like, flag any part of your answer that may not be fully reliable. I say that all the time. When I ask it something, please flag anything in your answer that may not be fully reliable. If you don't do that, You have to force transparency. By doing this, I think you reduce the risk of being misled by polished nonsense. Because AI is always going to try to sound helpful. It's always going to sound dogmatic. It's always going to sound authoritative. That's one of the things I don't like about it. So that's why I'm saying, hey, if you don't know, tell me. Flag anything that you're not sure about that may not be reliable. So number one, you have to establish the standard. Number two, you've got to demand transparency, not just answers. Number three, you have to correct and reinforce. Just like teaching a student or disciplining someone in the faith or discipling someone in the faith. You're not disciplining them, you're discipling them. So just like teaching a student or discipling someone, you have to shape AI by correcting what it gets wrong and affirming when it gets right. Sometimes you have to go, wait, where is that coming from? Or sometimes I'll go look something up and go, where did you get that? Where did you get this information? But I always engage it. I don't just say, you're wrong. I want to then engage it with, where did this come from? How did we get here? How can we avoid this? See, I did not realize a lot of times when I was asking it about song lyrics and asking it to analyze song lyrics, I realized, wait a minute, because of copyright issues and certain things, it sometimes pulls from basically its own paraphrase of song lyrics. And I'm like, what in the name of bubblegum are you doing? And it says, well, I can't. Well, I'm like, why didn't you tell me? So now whenever I ask it to analyze or I'm going back and forth about song lyrics, I give it a copy of the actual lyrics. I'm like, here's the actual lyrics. Now, do you have those? Are they in your memory? Yes. Okay. Now we can proceed. Only quote from and I will say this, only quote and analyze from the actual lyrics, not your paraphrase. Not your paraphrase. I have to say that all the time because I'll be like, what was that? Where did that lyric come from? So say, for example, maybe you're asking it something about the Bible and AI will say something like, this passage tells us that God wants us to trust him. You can then respond, well, be specific. What does the text actually say? Who is the original audience? What is the historical and literary context? Then when it does give a solid contextual answer, you can say, that's the kind of analysis I want from now on. Always do it that way. See, in that moment, I'm not just prompting it, I'm training it. I'm shaping how the system will interact with me, not just today, but tomorrow and the next day and the next day. You have to learn, and so I guess so. I'm just going to go. I'm going to run out of time. I'm not even going to get through all of my notes here. But so number one, establish your standard up front. You just got to establish it. Number two, demand transparency. Number three, correct and reinforce. And number four, use AI for what it does best. It's best used for structuring your thinking. It's usually very good at spotting contradictions and inconsistencies. It's very good at comparing viewpoints. It's very good in helping you summarize massive amounts of material. It's really good at checking for logical coherence. Is this a coherent logical idea? And it can draft something for you then to help refine. And a lot of times what I will do, I'll give it something. It will kind of put together a draft and then we work together to refine it. So you don't treat it like a divine voice or a theological oracle. You don't do that. You treat it as an assistant who works way faster than you ever can, thinks in patterns that you would take forever to see. But guess what? It does need constant supervision. AI will reflect whatever standard you accept. but it will raise to whatever standard you demand. If you want it to serve your mission, whether that's sound doctrine, faithful study, whatever it is, then don't ask it to lead, train it to follow. Now, I'll just stop right there because that's already a lot of content. Next, what we'll do is I'll talk about training AI specifically for theology, hermeneutics, and sermon critique. I'll talk about that in greater detail. Man, everyone should use it, but you got to learn to work with it. The more you use and the more you refine, the better it slowly develops. It takes time. It takes effort. There's sometimes I'm like, what is going on here? This is just not true. And I hate when that happens. Because here's the thing. On one hand, it can look, there's times it analyzes or gives me information. There's no way I could go verify or correct. It would take me 6 months to go verify and correct it. There's just no way. It's pulling from historical things that it would take me, like I would have to pull up every volume of the church fathers and spend 6 months trying to find sometimes I don't even have the ability to verify it. And I hate that puts you in a very dangerous position. But you got to realize that. So on one hand, you can say, well, I'm not going to believe anything AI says. Well, on the other hand, you're going to spend 6 months trying to find one quote that AI found in 5 seconds. So sometimes you got to rely on its accuracy. Sometimes you got to be like, well, Now, what I always do is I ask it, are you sure that's an accurate quote? Can you verify that? Are you sure? Are you sure that this is a direct quote and not just an allusion? So I always have to ask it like multiple times to verify. And if I get multiple verifications, then at least I have some level of certainty. Now, things that are easy to check, then I will check. But some things, it's just no way. It's analyzing massive amounts of information. There's no way I would spend 2 years trying to verify it. Which again makes us vulnerable. I understand that. But you've got to train it. Now, I'm not saying the emailer doesn't know all of this. So I'm just using the email to discuss this. I'll make it very clear. This is not the emailer needs to know this. The emailer probably knows this better than I do, right? The emailer has far more technological background than I do. I'm just using what they said as, oh, this is great, because I can use this to have this long discussion, because I'm always talking about people when they talk about AI, sometimes say, well, what are you doing to train it? And sometimes you'll get looks like, what do you train it? What do you mean train it? And I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. It's not a Google search engine. Okay? It's not that. Engage it, argue, discuss, ask it to do this and ask it to tell you when you're wrong. And who cares if it offends you? You want to find yourself 3 steps closer to truth, 3 steps closer to accuracy, 3 steps closer to facts, 3 steps closer to being more logical than you were when you started using AI. And hopefully it's far more than 3 steps closer to those things. Hopefully you're 15, 20 steps closer to those things. I think it's an amazing tool. I really do. I know it has limitations. You know what that tells me? I can't wait till tomorrow. I can't wait till a month from now. I can't wait for 3 months from now, because whatever limitations it has today, I believe 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, it will have fewer limitations. Will new problems develop? Absolutely. Name a technology where that doesn't occur. I'll give you an example today. So I use for my streaming, I use Apple TV device, right? Because I think Apple makes the best everything. And their Apple TV streaming device, I think, is the best streaming device of any streaming device out there. I love it. And one of the things Apple TV streaming device will have is for the video settings, you can have it match the frame rate and the video quality. I guess that's the best way to put it. I can't remember what it's actually called in the settings, but so it's going to match the frame rate and the video quality. right? So you can set it maybe like say 4K, SDR, you can set it wherever. And then whatever you're watching, if it's broadcasting in say HDR 10 plus or Dolby Atmos sound or whatever standard it's using, HDR, HDR10, 4K, whatever it is, then it will just match that content and will then deliver the picture. And what if your TV is able to carry that type of quality, and it will just match it. You don't have to go in and change it. It will just automatically do so. So I was watching an episode of The Handmaid's Tale today for the last season, and my Apple TV registered that it was an HDR10. And the episode started, and I'm like, what in the name of bubblegum is this? The scenes were so dark. It made it so dark. And I had to go in, and I'm like, it changed all my settings. It turned on settings that you should never want on. And I'm like, I have to recalibrate this. This is a mess. So I went back into the setting. I'm like, no. Don't match the output. No, I wanted you to give me it in, I think 4K. I can't remember what I said it. Don't match anything. And then the scene, everything looked great and everything looked awesome. And I'm like, it was great that it just automatically changed it, but it changed every setting. And even it was still set as HDR bright, and I can't remember the other setting, and it had the brightness all the way turned up, but those scenes were so dark. I'm like, is there any? It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. It's a great feature, but in that case, it was actually detrimental. So I had to go in, and what I had to do, I had to basically train it. Say, no. On this program, don't touch it. Leave it alone. This is what I want because this is better. The detail is great. The lighting is great. It's not grayed out. It's not too bright because you don't want that. Okay, so the dark scenes look actually dark. Okay, so this is good. And I had to go tell it what I wanted. It's no different. Apple Music has Dolby Atmos. I love Dolby Atmos. I love that setting. It can make music sound amazing. But there's some albums that if it plays Dolby Atmos, I'm like, what in the name of bubblegum? So I have to go and I have to turn off Dolby Atmos. Like, no, do not play this in Dolby Atmos. This album sounds horrible in Dolby Atmos. Don't do that. So you have to work with the technology. You have to change settings. AI, you got to change settings sometimes. It doesn't come out of the box ready to be perfect. It comes out of the box ready to be used. Now, how much time do you want to spend with it? Now, that's the thing. Some people don't. They just think it's Google. Oh, this is just a fancy Google. No, it's not. It's actually there for you to engage and go back and forth and work out ideas and theories and concepts and struggle with it. Now, sometimes when you're just trying to get information, like about a set of earbuds or if there's soy in this content, that can be very frustrating when it gets, there's been times it's done that to me and I'm like, what are you talking about? I can't remember. I wish I had a good example. There was something it was telling me to do with a product and I'm like, no, that's not right. This does not have that feature. What are you talking about? And so sometimes I'll have to go find something and give it to it and say, no, this is what I'm referring to. And then it'll be like, okay, based on what you're saying now, this is correct. I'm like, I wish you'd have figured that out 30 minutes ago because we just wasted a lot of time. Now, I don't say it that way, but I'm like, okay, how can we avoid this happening before? Because you were giving me information as if you knew exactly what I was talking about. And sometimes it will catch on. Sometimes it's not going to catch on. You've got to set the standard. Now, if you set the standard, I don't know if there's a better tool out there for Bible study, theology, hermeneutics, church history. I think things, well, it's better than any sermon, better than any commentary. That I will be, I live and die by that. I would rather have AI than any sermon because I don't even know when I can trust a sermon. How many times have I been? Oh man, so many times. I've ran out of all the factual, historical, textual, Greek and Hebrew errors in sermons. They're beyond legion. So I think AI is better in that case. Is it perfect? No, but people aren't perfect. So I guess maybe I'm more willing to accept that it's fallible, but its fallibility doesn't bother me. Its fallibility, I see it as a challenge to then work with to try to help find a way that when it is fallible, it will be more transparent and tell me when it doesn't know. And then I can be careful to, it's helping me protect myself from its fallibility. But I just know this, there's no person infallible. There's no source that's infallible. Everything we look at is fallible. So maybe that's the thing. But if you learn to train it, I think it's the coolest thing ever. I mean, coolest is such a, I'm undermining its significance to me. But all right, I'll stop right there. We're already at 56 minutes. I didn't even get where we go. But next, we will train AI for theology, hermeneutics, and sermon critique. And I will talk about the way I've tried to train it to do that. And AI knows exactly what I want when it comes to theology, hermeneutics, and sermons. It knows to the letter what I want. And it knows I want to be critical, and I know I want to be challenged, and I want it to tell me when, no, your theory is just wrong. And sometimes it will just tell me, look, just know this, your theory, nobody agrees with you. Everyone thinks you're an idiot. Okay, it doesn't say that. Well, sometimes it gets pretty aggressive with me, but I tell it to be very blunt with me. But you can train it to tell you that you're perfect all the time and you're right all the time, I guess, but I don't know. I want accuracy and I want truth. And I do get irritated when it's not accurate. And I can understand if you asked it about some earbuds or soy and it gave you contradictory answers, that's irritating. That is an 8th grader hasn't done his homework. But the difference is, if you try to correct a person, they may argue with you for 16 years, even after you've proven that they're wrong. AI will at least acknowledge, oh, you're right, I got this wrong, and try to make necessary corrections. People will just argue and argue and argue and argue and argue and argue and argue, even after you've given him 37 sources saying, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. And it's like, okay. And that's how human beings are. That's why I would prefer to argue with AI. Because AI will be, if you can ultimately say, oh, you're right. Okay, I got this completely wrong. And then you can say, okay, why did you get it wrong? What can we do to prevent it in the future? Typically, it will give you a specific instructions on what you can tell it next time to do. And it will also ask you if you want to just make it from moving forward, do you want me to use this as kind of a default prompt and what to do or not to do? And then slowly but surely, you'll build it to be I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but to be better. All right, I'll stop there. Thanks for listening. Everyone have a great day. We'll train AI some more next time. God bless.